Ridgewood Plaza, a seemingly ordinary visit turns contentious when Logan Granger, a property investor, is confronted for wearing a cap deemed provocative by some shoppers. Tensions escalate as Renee Simmons, the mall manager, and security staff mishandle the situation, forcing Logan to leave despite his calm demeanor. Their actions, driven by personal biases rather than policy, spark a chain of consequences, exposing flaws in leadership and professionalism. The incident reveals deep-seated prejudices, leaving the audience questioning fairness, accountability, and the dangers of assumptions in spaces meant to serve diverse communities. The sun-drenched afternoon cast a golden glow over Ridgewood Plaza, a sprawling shopping hub where families, teens, and solo shoppers bustled about. The aroma of fresh pretzels drifted through the air, mingling with the laughter of children and the clatter of cash registers. Stalls of trendy sunglasses and phone cases lined the walkways as shoppers meandered through the chaos. In the midst of the weekend frenzy walked Logan Granger, a prominent 45-year-old property investor, whose growing empire now included Ridgewood Plaza. Known for his sharp instincts in real estate, Logan was the type to observe his investments firsthand. Today, however, he wasn't clad in his usual business attire, but dressed down in khakis, sneakers, and a navy ball cap stamped boldly with America First. Logan's intention was simple: blend in, assess the operations, and get a feel for the plaza's atmosphere. He sauntered past stores, his gaze flitting over eateries and kiosks with the practiced eye of a businessman. But Logan's cap, its bright logo unmistakable, caught more than a few glances, some curious, others less approving. One of those glances belonged to Natalie Hale, a Ridgewood regular in her mid-30s with sharp eyes and an outspoken nature. She'd come to the plaza for a quiet afternoon, but the sight of Logan's cap froze her mid-step. To Natalie, it was more than an accessory. It was a provocation, a statement she felt shouldn't be tolerated in a family-friendly space. Her irritation simmered, each second amplifying her indignation. Finally, unable to ignore the growing sense of unease, Natalie took action. She spotted David Harper, a security officer stationed near the food court, absently sipping his coffee. "Excuse me," Natalie called, marching toward him with purposeful strides. "You need to deal with that man." She jabbed a finger toward Logan, who was casually browsing wallets at a kiosk. David blinked, lowering his coffee cup. "What man?" "The one with that hat. It's offensive," Natalie snapped, her voice clipped with impatience. "I'm not the only one uncomfortable here. You're supposed to ensure a safe environment for everyone, right?" David, a calm and pragmatic man in his late 40s, followed her gaze. Logan, with his cap, appeared utterly at ease and oblivious to the tension brewing around him. "Ma'am," David said carefully, "he's not breaking any rules by wearing a hat." Natalie crossed her arms, her frustration spilling over. "It's not just a hat. It's a political message, and people like me don't feel safe seeing it here. Are you going to do something or not?" David sighed, feeling the first tug of a headache he'd spent years de-escalating disputes, but Natalie's determination left little room for negotiation. Against his better judgment, he approached Logan. The confrontation. "Afternoon, sir," David said as he neared Logan, trying to strike a balance between authority and politeness. Logan turned, eyebrows raised, and offered a faint smile. "Afternoon," Logan replied. David shifted awkwardly, stealing a glance over his shoulder at Natalie, who stood nearby with her arms crossed like a watchdog. "Look, I hate to bother you, but we've received a complaint about, well, your hat." Logan tilted his head, amused. "My hat?" "Yes," David replied, his voice a touch sheepish. "Some people find it, controversial?" Logan's easy demeanor didn't waver. "Controversial? I'm just walking around, checking out the shops." David scratched the back of his neck. "I get it, sir, but I need to ask you, would you consider removing the hat just to keep the peace?" Logan's faint smile sharpened. "And if I don't?" David sighed inwardly. "I'd rather not escalate things, but if people feel uncomfortable, I have to address it." Logan's gaze hardened slightly, though his tone remained calm. "I'm not violating any rules, am I? Show me where it says I can't wear this hat here." David hesitated, caught off guard. The plaza's policies didn't include dress codes, and he knew it. We just try to maintain a neutral environment, he mumbled vaguely. Well, Logan said firmly, unless there's a policy I've broken, I'm not taking it off. The manager steps in. David's unease deepened, and realizing he couldn't resolve this alone, he radioed for the mall manager, Renee Simmons. Renee was no stranger to confrontation, but hearing about an incident over a hat tested her patience. As she briskly approached, her sharp heels clicking against the tile, she took in the scene. Logan standing tall and relaxed, Natalie glaring expectantly, and David looking frazzled. All right, what's the issue? Renee asked, her voice clipped. Natalie pounced first. He's the issue. That hat is offensive, and it's making people feel unwelcome. Renee turned her sharp gaze on Logan. Sir, I need to ask you to remove the hat or leave the plaza. We aim to keep the space comfortable for all our patrons. Logan met her eyes with quiet resolve. And how exactly is my hat making people uncomfortable? I'm not causing a disturbance, I'm just shopping. Renee's irritation flared. It's not about what you're doing. It's the message your hat represents. Logan's calm confidence only seemed to rattle her further. If you're enforcing a rule, I'd like to see it. Natalie's expectant stare bore into Renee, who felt pressure from both sides. Sir, she said, her voice firm, I'm not going to argue with you. You're either removing the hat or you're leaving. Logan exhaled quietly, then escalated. He said simply, his steady gaze unsettling Renee more than anger ever could. With a nod to security, Renee signaled for backup. 2 more guards arrived, flanking David as they prepared to escort Logan from the plaza. Shoppers paused, murmurs spreading through the crowd as curiosity grew. You're making a mistake, Logan said calmly, as the guards stepped closer. But I suppose you'll figure that out soon enough. Renee bristled. Is that a threat? Logan shook his head, a faint smile playing at his lips. No, just a fact. Without resistance, Logan allowed the guards to guide him toward the exit, his composure unnerving everyone involved. Natalie watched the scene unfold with smug satisfaction, her arms crossed in triumph. But as Renee turned back toward the bustling plaza, her stomach twisted with unease. Logan's words lingered like a shadow in her mind. For the first time in her career, Renee Simmons wondered if she'd just made the wrong call. Logan Granger's steps were measured as he exited Ridgewood Plaza, the calm authority he carried lingering in his wake. At the entrance, he paused briefly, turning to glance back at the massive building he now owned. His expression was unreadable, but there was a quiet finality in the way he stood, a silent statement that resonated more than any outburst could. From inside, Renee Simmons watched him go, a flicker of doubt clouding her mind. For a fleeting moment, she considered calling after him, but her pride wouldn't let her. She turned briskly, retreating into the main concourse, eager to shake off the strange energy of the encounter. Natalie Hale, still hovering nearby, approached with the unmistakable swagger of someone convinced of their victory. Well, that went better than I expected, Natalie remarked, her voice smug. Renee forced a thin smile. We handled it, she replied curtly, though her words lacked conviction. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't silence the nagging discomfort Logan's parting words had sparked. Lingering doubts. Back at his post, David Harper replayed the interaction like a tape on repeat. Logan's refusal to be rattled, the calm, deliberate way he'd spoken, was unlike anything David had encountered in his years as a security officer. It wasn't arrogance or defiance, it was something deeper, more composed, as if Logan knew something no one else did. For the rest of the day, the plaza returned to its usual rhythm, but the incident clung to the minds of those involved, like an aftertaste. That night, Renee lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the weight of Logan's parting words pressing on her like stones. You don't know who you're dealing with, but you'll figure it out soon enough. Try as she might to brush it off, something about his tone, the certainty behind it, made her chest tighten. She'd dealt with disgruntled customers before, but Logan Granger was different. The unexpected meeting. The following morning, Renee arrived at the plaza earlier than usual, determined to bury yesterday's events under a mountain of work. But as she powered up her computer, a bold red notification blinked at the top of her inbox. Urgent. Emergency meeting. Corporate leadership attendance required. Her stomach sank as she clicked it open. The email, terse and direct, summoned her, David, and the rest of the plaza's security team to a conference room immediately. Words like unacceptable conduct and addressing consequences leapt off the screen, stoking her unease. By the time Renee entered the sterile conference room, the air crackled with tension. David Harper and the other officers sat in stiff silence, their expressions uneasy. Whispers swirled as they speculated about the meeting's purpose, but all fell silent when Daniel Cross, a senior corporate director, strode in with a folder tucked under his arm. Daniel was a man who rarely wasted words. He surveyed the room with a gaze that cut straight through excuses and half-truths. "We're here to discuss what happened yesterday," he began, his voice sharp and deliberate. "The individual you escorted out of this plaza was not just a random shopper." The room froze. Renee's chest tightened as Daniel's next words landed like a hammer. "That man was Logan Granger, your new landlord." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Renee felt her face flush with heat, her pulse roaring in her ears. David's jaw tightened, his earlier confidence crumbling. Daniel continued without missing a beat. "Mr. Granger has expressed his deep disappointment over how he was treated. He specifically highlighted failures in judgment, professionalism, and leadership that do not align with this company's values. To be blunt, your actions were unacceptable." Consequences. Daniel turned his attention directly to Renee, his gaze sharp and unyielding. "As the property manager, you are responsible for setting the tone and leading your team. Instead, you allowed bias and external pressure to dictate your decisions, effective immediately. You are relieved of your position." The words hit Renee like a physical blow. Her lips parted to protest, but no sound emerged. She sank back into her chair, her mind spinning. The weight of the consequences crashed over her, her career, her reputation. It was all gone. Daniel then shifted his focus to David and the other security officers. "While you were following instructions, that doesn't absolve you of accountability. As frontline representatives of this plaza, your responsibility is to treat every patron with respect and de-escalate situations professionally." David swallowed hard, nodding silently. "You'll all undergo mandatory retraining in conflict resolution and customer relations," Daniel continued, his voice firm, but even. "Consider this your only warning. Any further lapses will result in immediate termination." David exchanged a glance with his fellow officers. Relief mingled with guilt, relief that they still had their jobs, and guilt that their actions had escalated so far. The aftermath. As the meeting ended, the room emptied quickly, leaving Renee behind at the conference table, stunned and alone. Daniel approached her, his tone softer now, but no less direct. "Renee," he said, "managing a property like this is never easy. I understand that. But leadership isn't about control. It's about judgment. Yesterday, you allowed a situation to spiral because you didn't stop to consider the bigger picture. You let someone else's anger become your own." Renee finally found her voice, though it trembled. "I thought I was protecting the environment here." Daniel shook his head. "Protecting it from what? A man wearing a hat. You failed to see the difference between a provocation and a perspective." Renee looked away, unable to meet his eyes. "I hope you learned from this," Daniel added, his tone not unkind, "because there's a lesson here, if you choose to see it." Lessons learned. That afternoon, David Harper sat alone in the break room, nursing a cup of stale coffee. He couldn't shake the image of Logan, his calm, his composure, the unspoken authority he carried. In hindsight, David realized the man hadn't been trying to pick a fight. He'd been trying to prove a point. For Logan Granger, the incident had never been about revenge. As he sat in his office later that day, overlooking the plaza, he reflected on what had transpired. His goal had been clear: to demonstrate that leadership demands fairness, not assumption, that professionalism must be upheld regardless of personal opinions. If Ridgewood Plaza was to thrive under his ownership, this lesson had to come early and hit hard, and it had. The plaza staff, still reeling from the day's events, wouldn't forget the consequences of yesterday's assumptions. And for those willing to learn, like David, the experience had planted a seed of growth. "I never meant for it to spiral like this," Renee Simmons said quietly, her voice raw with regret. She sat across from Daniel Cross, the senior corporate director, in what had become her final conversation as Ridgewood Plaza's manager. "I thought I was protecting the mall's reputation." Daniel's expression remained firm, though his tone softened just a touch. "Intentions matter, Renee, but outcomes matter more. Leadership is about staying composed under pressure, not adding to it. Yesterday you had the chance to de-escalate, to uphold our values, and you missed it." He stood, the conversation drawing to a close. "Take this experience and learn from it. Mistakes aren't what define us. It's how we grow afterward." Renee nodded stiffly, gathering the few belongings that symbolized her years in the role. As she walked through the office doors for the last time, her emotions swirled, regret, shame, and self-recrimination weighing her down like an anchor. Her reflection lingered in the glass entryway, a reminder of the price of misplaced judgment. A second chance. Meanwhile, David Harper and Jenny Harris returned to their security posts with minds heavy from the morning's meeting. The revelation that Logan Granger was not just any patron, but the new owner, had rocked them to the core. They replayed their actions, every missed opportunity to step back, de-escalate, and think clearly. But where there was guilt, there was also resolve. Both officers were determined to prove they could embody the professionalism expected of them. Their path to redemption began the following week when Jackson Granger's Respect Initiative rolled out across Ridgewood Plaza. The first step, an intensive training program. David and Jenny joined other staff members, cashiers, store managers, and custodial workers, in immersive sessions focused on conflict resolution, active listening, and impartial decision-making. The workshops were hands-on, challenging participants to confront their own assumptions and navigate role-play scenarios that mirrored real-life tensions. By the end of the week, David found himself thinking back to his encounter with Logan Granger. "If I'd known half of this then," he muttered during a break, shaking his head. Jenny, seated nearby, replied softly, "Now we do. That's what matters." A new chapter begins. A week later, Ridgewood Plaza welcomed its interim manager, Rachel Carter. In her early 30s, Rachel was brimming with optimism and fresh energy. From her very first team meeting, she made her intentions clear. "I'm not here to assign blame or dwell on what's behind us," Rachel told her staff, her voice calm but resolute. "We're here to move forward, to make this mall a place where everyone feels valued, respected, and welcome. That starts with us." Rachel spearheaded efforts to rebuild trust between employees and customers. She prioritized frequent communication, holding regular team huddles to address concerns, and reinforce the values of respect and fairness. Under Rachel's leadership, Ridgewood Plaza began to change. Visible reminders of the mall's new culture appeared overnight. Signs were installed at entrances, food courts, and service desks, bearing a simple but powerful message: "Welcome to Ridgewood Plaza, a place where everyone belongs." These weren't just words on a wall. They reflected a shift in mindset, leading by example. Logan Granger, true to his vision, remained deeply involved. Far from being a detached owner, he worked alongside Rachel and the corporate team to ensure the initiative succeeded. He hosted staff town halls, listening to feedback and sharing his experiences. "I've been where you are," Logan said during one meeting, his tone measured, yet personal. "It's easy to make snap judgments, but those judgments carry weight. The way we treat people, patrons, co-workers, strangers, defines who we are." His leadership struck a chord with the staff. Logan's calm presence, paired with his willingness to engage directly, fostered trust. He didn't just enforce a policy, he inspired the team to embrace it as their own. Redemption and renewal. For David Harper and Jenny Harris, the change was tangible. With their new training in mind, they adopted a different approach to their roles. David, once content to blend into the background, began engaging with shoppers warmly and attentively. Jenny, who had struggled to balance authority with empathy, found herself navigating conflicts with newfound confidence. Their efforts didn't go unnoticed. A middle-aged woman stopped David one afternoon, offering a small smile. "I don't know what's changed around here," she said, "but I feel it. This place feels different, better." It wasn't just the staff who noticed the transformation. Customers began to experience Ridgewood Plaza as a place of genuine inclusivity. Families wandered through without tension, teens gathered in groups without judgment, and individuals of all backgrounds felt seen and valued. The mall, once the site of a tense standoff, became a shining example of what leadership, accountability, and fairness could achieve. The ripple effect. The incident that had begun as a misunderstanding had sparked something far greater, a cultural shift with ripples that extended beyond Ridgewood Plaza. Logan Granger implemented his Respect initiative across all his properties, ensuring that every space under his leadership reflected the same values: professionalism, impartiality, and inclusion. The initiative was more than rules and signage. It was a shared commitment to treating people with dignity. At Ridgewood Plaza, the results spoke for themselves. Employee morale rose, customer satisfaction improved, and the mall's reputation flourished. Staff members like David and Jenny became living proof of what growth and second chances could accomplish. As for Renee Simmons, the experience served as a turning point in her career. Though no longer at Ridgewood Plaza, she carried the lessons of that fateful day into her future endeavors. She learned that leadership isn't about pride or control. It's about fairness, humility, and the courage to make better choices. A place for all. Months later, Logan Granger strolled through Ridgewood Plaza on a sunny afternoon, blending in seamlessly with the bustling crowd. He passed the food court, where families laughed over shared meals, and security officers greeted patrons with smiles. Stopping near the entrance, he glanced at the sign that read, "Welcome to Ridgewood Plaza, a place where everyone belongs." A small, satisfied smile crossed his face. The journey had been far from easy, but the outcome was undeniable. Ridgewood Plaza had become more than just a mall. It was a space that welcomed all people, a symbol of growth, redemption, and the power of quiet leadership. Logan tipped his cap, now a plain navy blue, and continued on his way. Months had passed since the events that marked the beginning of Ridgewood Plaza's transformation, and the difference was unmistakable. What had once been a place tinged with unease and tension had blossomed into a warm, vibrant hub of community life. Families roamed freely, laughter echoing from every corner, while employees approached their work with pride and a renewed sense of purpose. Logan Granger, ever the hands-on leader, returned for a follow-up visit to see for himself how far things had come. Dressed casually in a simple blazer and jeans, he walked through the bustling main concourse, blending effortlessly with the crowds. The mall he had envisioned, one built on respect, professionalism, and inclusivity, had finally taken shape. A change you could feel. As Logan strolled past the storefronts, he noticed how much lighter the atmosphere felt. Staff members smiled and greeted patrons with genuine warmth, engaging in small conversations rather than mechanical transactions. At the information desk, a cheerful employee assisted an elderly couple, patiently answering their questions and offering thoughtful suggestions. Nearby, David Harper and Jenny Harris, the two security officers who had once fumbled under pressure, were now unrecognizable in their professionalism. David's demeanor had transformed completely. Where he had once stood stiff and detached, he now moved with approachable confidence, pausing to guide a lost child back to their parents and offering a quick word of reassurance. Jenny, always calm but formerly hesitant, had embraced her role as a community presence. Logan watched as she bent to assist a parent struggling with a stroller, her kind words instantly putting them at ease. These were small gestures, but they carried immense weight, proof that the Respect initiative had taken root in ways both visible and meaningful. Logan gave David a small nod as he passed, and David responded with a smile that held quiet pride. It was clear the two officers had grown from their earlier missteps, turning them into opportunities for personal and professional redemption. A new leader's vision. At the heart of this change stood Rachel Carter, the interim manager Logan had personally championed for the role. Rachel's fresh energy and unshakable enthusiasm had proven infectious. She worked tirelessly to reinforce the values of inclusion and respect, holding regular team meetings to celebrate small victories and tackle lingering challenges. Her customer-first program, which rewarded staff for exceptional service, had become a game-changer. Employees who went above and beyond received public recognition during team meetings, small bonuses, or certificates of excellence. More importantly, the program reinforced a culture of pride in the team's shared success. Logan found Rachel near the food court, chatting warmly with a group of staff members. She spotted him and walked over with an easy smile. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" Logan nodded, his expression reflecting both gratitude and satisfaction. "It's not just about what you fixed, it's about what you've built. This mall feels like a place people want to be." Rachel's smile widened. That was always the goal. Respect and community aren't just buzzwords, they're how we thrive. Tangible results. The impact of the changes extended far beyond the smiles of employees and patrons. Ridgewood Plaza's success had become quantifiable. Customer satisfaction surveys revealed a remarkable surge in positive feedback, with shoppers frequently citing the friendly staff and welcoming environment as reasons for their loyalty. Families enjoyed lingering longer, teens felt safe gathering with friends, and individuals from all walks of life appreciated the mall's inclusive atmosphere. Financially, the mall was thriving. Increased foot traffic and returning customers translated into higher sales, solidifying Ridgewood Plaza as a favorite local destination. To Logan, these results were more than numbers on a spreadsheet. They were proof of the power of leadership, accountability, and a willingness to change. Lasting growth. Sitting at a table in the food court, Logan paused to take in the scene around him. Children tugged at their parents' sleeves as they debated ice cream flavors. Teens laughed over shared meals, and shoppers moved at an easy, unhurried pace. At a nearby kiosk, a young employee helped an older customer with patient care. Their interaction a reflection of the values Logan had worked so hard to instill. The transformation wasn't just cosmetic, it was cultural. Logan spotted David and Jenny patrolling nearby, their presence reassuring without being overbearing. Watching them interact effortlessly with shoppers, Logan saw something else, a sense of ownership, pride, and purpose. They weren't just enforcing rules, they were fostering trust. The bigger picture. For Logan Granger, this moment was deeply personal. He reflected on the incident that had sparked these changes, not as a source of frustration, but as a catalyst for growth. This was never just about fixing one mistake, he had told the staff weeks earlier during a town hall. It's about setting a new standard, one that shows respect is non-negotiable, and inclusivity isn't optional. It's who we are. Logan's words had resonated, becoming the foundation on which Ridgewood Plaza rebuilt itself. The mall now stood as an example of what could happen when people took responsibility, embraced change, and prioritized fairness over assumption. A final walk. As Logan stood to leave, he passed Rachel once more. She waved, a look of confidence and pride written across her face. "Keep leading the way you have been," Logan said, his voice carrying warmth and trust. "You've done something special here." Rachel nodded, her reply resolute. "We're just getting started." Walking toward the exit, Logan noticed a group of teenagers laughing as they lounged near a fountain. Comfortable, happy, and at home. By the entrance, an employee cheerfully helped a couple carry out their bags. Logan glanced up at the familiar signage posted by the doors. "Welcome to Ridgewood Plaza, a place where everyone belongs." The phrase, simple yet profound, felt like a promise kept. Logan pushed open the doors and stepped into the afternoon sun, a quiet smile on his face. Ridgewood Plaza was no longer just a mall. It was a symbol of what happens when respect, understanding, and growth are given the chance to thrive.